Hi friends, Mindy here. I have a different kind of video for you today. I'm doing a collaboration with Jade from Etched by Faith. This is called the What You Make Challenge. And so what we're doing each week is challenging each other, and we're both creating videos and providing kind of an inspiration word. And so her word for this week is pop. And so what I'm going to be doing is creating like a little pop-up card element here in my little junk journal. So the first thing I've done is cut down this piece of paper down. It's about 1.75 inches. The size doesn't really matter. And now I folded back a little section that's going to be the piece that gets glued down. And now I'm going to make this section where the little pop out pieces are going to go. So the first thing I'm doing is kind of folding it across from that first fold down to the edge of the paper, and then doing it the opposite direction. And this is gonna make, I don't know if you remember as kids making those little like finger, like I think they called them fortune cooked things. You'd put them on your fingers and open them up. That's basically what I'm making here. So I'm just creating that little X, and you can see now I have this little section here that will pop up. So that little flap in the back is what's going to get glued down to my card. And I folded it, I guess, a little wonky, so I just had to trim off a little bit there, but that's not going to hurt anything. So what I'm going to do is at that little flap right here, I'm going to use some strong liquid adhesive so I can kind of have a second to play with the position. And I'm gluing this piece down, and then once I get everything kind of figured out, I'll glue down the other edge. And so what will happen is when this piece opens up, like this little section of my art journal, it will pull this open, and then some other little pieces will pop out. So this will make more sense. And there's a video on YouTube that I referenced for this, and she does a really great job of like showing how to do this with measurements and everything. I'm just kind of eyeballing it, so I will try to link that video down below if you want to, have something that's a little bit more precise than the way that I'm doing it. But this is just my little junk journal. So what I need to do is make sure that when the card is like fully open, that part is extended all the way. So I'm just kind of making a little mark here so I know where to fold it, where the spine of this book is. It's the other little tricky part, is I'm kind of working over that stitching in the spine. So I'm just going to have to fiddle with this just a little bit. So I had to trim it down. It was a little bit too long because this piece that's going to get, I'm kind of folding it back on itself, if you can see. And this piece is going to get glued down, but I can only glue up to where that stitching is. So I'm just kind of I had to trim off a little bit of that section. So you can see when I glue this part here, this is the back side. It's going to glue to that back side of that front cover. And then it will be the mechanism that opens up this little pop-up piece. So you can see it closes down. And like I said, I had to fidget with this just a little bit to get it in the exact right spot so that it would extend fully and then also fold fully when it was closed. So this is what it looks like now that the glue has dried and it's open all the way. And now I'm going to make the little pieces. You can see how it folds up. I'm going to make the little pieces that are going to pop out. So I just cut down a couple little squares out of some more craft cardstock. The size doesn't necessarily matter for what I'm doing here, but I just created two, and you're just going to add glue in this one little section of the triangle here, where it folds, you can kind of see. And so I'm kind of tucking it in here, making sure it's not sticking out over the top of my page. And then I realized I did it upside down because it's basically going to kind of tuck in. You can kind of see how it kind of spins in and underneath. So I'm just adding a little bit more glue and positioning this in the right way this time. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'll show you here how it kind of rotates in, if you can kind of see that. And that's what's going to be my little pop-up element. It's just where I glued it is just a little bit too tall. I'll trim that down in a minute, but right now I'm going to add the piece that's going to go on the bottom. And again, just being careful not to have the glue go outside of that section that's going to fold, and it's just going to tuck in kind of up underneath that section. You can kind of see how they kind of rotate in, and that is going to be my little pop out element. So I'm just kind of holding this down until that glue dries a little bit. And then here is when I decided they were just a little bit too big. And so because this is my art journal and it does not have to be perfect. I'm just kind of fiddling with them a little bit, and I just decided just to be safe and trim it down just ever so slightly on two of the sides. And they don't have to, you could make them so that they're perfect squares if you want to or whatever, but I just went ahead and I just trimmed them down a little bit. So you can see here again, I'm just kind of tucking it in, just making sure with everything that I do that it's still working properly. And here is where I had folded it in the wrong place earlier, and so it's created kind of a weakness. And I want to make sure that when this opens and closes that it's folding in the right spot. So I'm just going to reinforce that fold by adding another little piece back behind here. No one will ever know. It's not going to affect anything. It's just going to give some stability to that area where I had folded it. Anytime you fold paper, you're weakening it. So I just want to make sure that it's going to stay nice and sturdy for when I'm adding the other elements to this. So this is basically the mechanism that is going to create my little pop out situation here. And now it's time to do all of the decorating. So I wasn't sure how I was going to decorate this at first. So probably some of this would have been easier had I done it ahead of time. I don't know. But I just wanted to make sure I could figure out the pop out element before I did all of the work of decorating it. So I'm dry brushing on some gesso, and I'm not covering the whole entire thing. I'm making sure to leave some of the craft cardstock showing through. So I'm just doing a little bit of gesso with a really, really dry brush, and I'm going to cover all of the sections of this little pop out piece. And then now I'm going to just collage on these are actually drop papers from when I was doing some other art journal things. And so this was just leftover paint and stuff. And so I'm just going to adhere those down and kind of make this little section kind of fit more within the kind of the theme that is occurring within this journal. So I'm just using some leftover pieces, just tearing them off, just different little sections that I think are gonna fit. And then what I'm going to do is I have these cards that I created. I have a video for how I made these. I'm just kind of going through here and picking out one that I can use to be the main image, and mostly just because they're basically the same exact size as this little craft folder section. So it's about roughly 3 inches. And so this piece that's going to go here on top of that pop-up element needs to be the same height as the card or whatever you're working with. So I'm going to add some really strong adhesive here because this paper is really, really thick and I need to make sure that it sticks. But you're just basically adding the adhesive only in this little part that kind of forms an arrow. And then I'm just going to line this up and make sure that it's, even top to bottom, and pressing down really hard. And now you can really see the little pop-up pieces on the right, and they're going to just tuck in behind that section. And then when it's open, they will extend out. So now I'm just going to take some matte medium here, some fluid matte medium, and I'm going to adhere these pieces down. This is kind of a cheater's way of doing some mixed media backgrounds. If you just have some drop papers or whatever, just collaging a bunch of things down and then pull it all together kind of at the end. So I have in my mind a scripture that I want to include for this little card that I'm making here. And so as you watch me gluing this stuff down, it's Isaiah 43 19, and it says, "Behold, I will do a new thing. Now it shall spring forth. Shall you know it? I will even make a way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert." And that scripture was just kind of came to mind today. And so I thought I will just make this little pop out section. So you can see me just drawing. I'm just using these little pieces, some matte medium going all around and adding them everywhere. And then just kind of trimming off the excess. I didn't get this one quite glued down as well as I should have. So I'm just adding some more matte medium on the edges here, just making sure everything's tucked down really well. And then I will keep, I'm just going to keep working until I get all of the pieces glued down here that I want to. And you can't see off camera here, I have a little Dymo label maker. It's an embossing one, and I just typed out the word behold, and that's going to go on the outside of this. And so I'm just kind of getting an idea for where I want to do things. And I have some of that glue is still drying, and so I just wanted to keep something heavy on there. That's why I have that big stamp sitting there. It's just, it was heavy enough to kind of hold everything in place while I'm working on the inside cover. And I'm just, again, I'm just using some matte medium, and then I have, the matte medium's not even dry here, and I have added some white gesso. And I'm doing this to this section because this is where I'm actually going to write out that scripture. So I need I wanted a really bold white section that I would be able to write over. So I'm just kind of putting some paint down and then kind of tapping it off, just giving me a good section where I can write. And I'm just going to dry all of that and cut off all the little extra pieces here. I had to work in sections because of the way this, little thing was designed. So I'm just kind of going back and forth as one thing is drying, moving on to the next thing. And then now I'm using my little embossing labeler here to type out the word new and thing. And those are going to be on the little sections that pop out. So on this top square, it's going to say new. And I'm just going to add some more of that little paper, not covering the whole thing. Again, just leaving some of the craft showing through. And I didn't really want to add gel medium to that little square because it was done out of a thinner craft paper, and I didn't want it to buckle or anything to cause problems, when it's supposed to kind of tuck underneath. So I just went ahead and pulled out my Yoo-Hoo glue stick and just glued that paper down that way. It works really well for collaging things as well. So now I am typing out the word thing, and this is just a little bit too long, but I can kind of pull it off. I'm just going to do it at an angle across this bottom square, and so I will add some more of this little collage paper onto that square as well, just adding some color, and then making sure everything just really looks like it was one cohesive piece instead of kind of a random assemblage of everything. So I'm just finding another little section here that I want to use that's kind of got those same colors and everything, and it's pulling in some of the craft and some of the cream colored papers and just trying to bring all the colors all the way through all the elements. So again, using my Yoo-Hoo glue stick there, and then I'm just going to trim off these little sections so that I get back to having the squares so that it will tuck back neatly underneath my little pop-up. Just making sure that my glue is dry enough that I can trim here. And then I will add the words to there. And I'm just kind of putting them both I'll put them both at angles so that it looks purposeful and I can get everything on there. So here I decided to add some doodling and some different things. This pen isn't really working, so I needed to grab another one. So I'm going to pull out a different black pen here. I'm using a Sharpie S-Gel here. I find that for the most part it writes over most things. Just my other one was dried out, so or used up, I guess. So I'm just adding some doodling on all the little sections on the pop-out pieces, just as a way to kind of bring all of this together. And little scribbles and doodles just over the top. It's just kind of a finishing touch that will just make everything more cohesive. So now I'm back to the cover. Like I said, I kind of jumping around here, but I decided I wanted something to kind of add behind the word behold, just to really make it a good focal image. So I just used a little scallop punch that I have. It's like 1.5 inches, I think. And then I'm just gonna add a little bit of pen work kind of around the edge, just to tie that in along, like with the background. And then again, using my Yoo-Hoo glue stick here, I'm just gonna glue that down. And then I'm gonna add some splashes with some paint, and it's kind of hard to see on here, but I just watered down some black acrylic paint and I added some splashes on the cover, and I'm gonna go to the inside. And again, this is going to be one of those things that doing it all the way through, even on the little square pieces that pop out, is just going to make it all feel very cohesive. And then I got a big lump of it right there in all of that gesso, which is where I'm planning to write. So now I'm just going to add another layer of gesso, and I'm actually going to just put this on with my finger and kind of add a really nice section here so that I'll be able to write out that scripture. The paint isn't even wet, and that doesn't bother me. It just adds a little more interest to that section, but it's going to be enough that I can still write over it fairly easy. So then I thought, well, I have the white paint out, I might as well do some white splatters as well. So I just watered the gesso down, and then I'm splattering that everywhere as well. And now we'll go back through and add my labels. So this is Behold, and I'm just trimming it down ever so slightly. I still wanted it to like overlap the circle, but I just didn't want it to be too big. So just gluing that down. These are self-adhesive, so you just peel the backing off. And then I'm pulling out, this is actually, I think it's a charcoal, it's a white charcoal pencil. I'm just adding some really subtle doodles and scribbles and just another layer to add some interest here. Art journaling for me is a very kind of messy and intuitive thing. It's just kind of a way for me to play with paints and mediums, and so it might not be everybody's cup of tea, but for me this is just really fun. So now you can see here on the little pop-out pieces, I'm adding the other labels that say new and thing, and I'm just gonna kind of tuck that in there at enough of an angle that I can get the word on there and you can still kind of read it when it pops out. And then I'm just going to trim off the edge, and then I'm going to go back through again with my charcoal pencil, and I'm dating it here, and then just adding some different things. I went ahead and wrote out that scripture in that section where I had put all that white gesso down, and now I'm going to use my label maker to write out Isaiah 43. And this label maker has some punctuation, but it does not have a colon. So I put a period there, but it actually didn't show up very well. I guess I didn't squeeze hard enough on the embosser. So I'll fix that in a minute, but I'm just going to add some more charcoal around each of the things. And so I'm just using a Posca paint pen. These paint pens are great. And then I decided, such a bright white, that I decided I would add a little bit of doodles here and there with it. This is one of my favorite white pens of all time. And they come in different nibs. I don't remember what nib that one was, but anyway, so this is how it looks when it's finished. You can see it pops out. So I hope this met the challenge, and be sure to check out Jade's channel. She will also be doing her interpretation of this channel, and if you of the challenge. And if you like this video, I'd appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And until next time, bye-bye.